Hillsdale College. Constitution 101, the meaning of history and the Constitution. Make sure you guys go to hillsdale.edu/Tim to enroll for free. Have you guys ever heard someone say, either in a clip or on TV, or just someone you know, something like, quote, capitalism is evil? How do you respond? And when did capitalism become so controversial? Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses. That's right, free. Learn about the United States Constitution, the stories in the book of Genesis, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church with Hillsdale College free online courses. Hillsdale recently launched a new course, Understanding Capitalism, that you should definitely check out. In 7 lectures, you'll learn about the role of profit and loss, how human nature plays a role in our economic system, why capitalism depends on private property rights, the rule of law, and above all, freedom, and why capitalism is ultimately a system that encourages morality rather than undermines it. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Tim to enroll in this course, Understanding Capitalism. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Once again, that's hillsdale.edu/Tim. Look, it's free. That's amazing. It is a meaningless holiday, I guess. It's Trump's first 100 days. And most of you may not know this, but it's meaningless. It was made up by the press 100 years ago because FDR was doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And they were like, look what he did in his 100 days. And then from then on, people were like, 100 days. It signifies nothing. You can't guarantee things get done, but sure, here we are. Now, Donald Trump may not be FDR. He's got a bunch of other things under his belt. ABC News reports 220 lawsuits in 100 days. Trump administration faces unprecedented legal blitz. The administration has been sued over nearly every element of Trump's agenda. And then, of course, this report, which we've covered from congress.gov several times, talking about how Donald Trump has more universal injunctions filed against his administration than all other administrations. And he has around 40% of all universal injunctions ever issued. And, well, I got to say, they're unconstitutional. But, right now, the big question is, how are we doing? How does Donald Trump hold up in your view? Do you hold him in great esteem in these 100 days?
Look, he's just for the results at the border alone, I give him a B+, right? Because we went from having a massive influx every day, thousands or tens of thousands of people coming into the country every single day to, almost none or very, very, very few. And that was simply by enforcing the law and implementing what really amount to small changes. There have been no significant changes. Maybe they're a decent sized changes because there are military assets at the border. So he activated the National Guard, I guess, or actually I think it was the Marine Corps. But they're actually doing something. That alone, that was fulfilling one of the major reasons that people voted for Donald Trump. So right off the bat, I think he's at least doing okay.
I think it's interesting that the discussion this time around in his second term has changed the focus from, I feel like in the first term, now maybe it's just been such a long time since I focused on that, was that it was about the building of the border wall, and it was about trying to get the financing and the funding for the border wall. But what focusing on deportations has done is it's thrown into contrast just how similar previous administrations were on this topic to show you just how far left things have gone within certain sections of the Democratic Party. Because if you look at the numbers when Barack Obama was in office between deportations and turnaways at the border, you see something fairly similar. Despite the fact that they were letting a lot of people in, they were getting those numbers up by turning people away at the border and reclassifying those deportations. So for those who are willing to look into it and those who actually want to grow and see where politics has changed, you can look at what things were like between 2008 and 2016, and you can see a vast shift. And I think maybe that's not the focus of the first 100 days, but for the people that are paying close attention, it kind of helps form a narrative for things.
I'm going to go with the grading because you went with the grading. I'm going to go B+ as well, not just because of the border, though. He is balls to the wall with executive orders. He's doing everything he can possibly do. You have to remember when you're putting in cabinet members, nothing can really get accomplished until you have the staffing for those cabinet members. So you have a bunch of people in there with a bunch of great ideas that hopefully will have the backup soon to be able to enact them. But as far as what he can do personally from the White House and from the Oval Office, I think he's done more than what any other president has ever done, especially as a conservative and a Republican. He came in, I think he learned from his first 4 years. He came in like a bull in a china shop and signed everything. Literally, I don't even know when the man has a break from signing executive orders at this point, basically.
I don't know when the man sleeps. Apparently he sleeps 6 hours a night.
Sounds about right.
That's crazy. So the big question here, though, is this, is approval. So RCP approval ratings in aggregate has Trump at -7. But I do want to stress, completely meaningless. Society is collapsing. The end is nigh. And these polls are, I'm exaggerating, guys. The polls mean absolutely nothing is what I'm trying to say. You've got NPR, ABC, CNN, and I believe Daily Mail, and New York Times and CBS. They're all saying in the past week, Trump is double digits underwater. Right? That's crazy. Now, Rasmussen has him -4, and they tend to be more accurate. And, we had the guy from Rasmussen on recently, and they have been very, very accurate. But my issue with the aggregate polling right now is that you can have two polls, one saying Trump is up 1, and the next day he's -9, or I should say the next period. Then he's -2. They're all completely different and random. Back, let's just go back 8 years when I used to cover a lot more of this stuff in the first Trump term, and I'd always go for these polls and I'd be tracking them every day. They were fairly similar. They'd all have Trump at like -6 or 7, and they wouldn't change that much because what's really going on? How is it that you've got these corporate polls showing Trump double digits underwater, and the swing from the polls is insane? This week it's plus that, then it's minus that. That's why I say it's largely meaningless. But what I will say is Trump is down. Okay. Rasmussen had Trump up at the beginning of the month at, I believe he was +4, and now he's -4. So it was a big swing. This is not good for Donald Trump, but I don't think it's apocalyptic. Now, the reason why I don't want to use aggregates, as I often say, people are going to be like, Tim, you always say use aggregates. It's because they're all randomized at this point. All the polls, all these pollsters have changed their systems up, and now they're giving wildly different numbers across the board. Now, you can make the argument that, NPR, ABC, CNN, Daily Mail, they all show Trump, -10, 12, 10, 14, 13, 10. That's pretty comparable, right? But this whole 100 days, it's like during the same period, one of these polls would have Trump at +9 and one would have him like -3. I'm like, how is that possible that we're getting such wildly different numbers? What I do think matters is that if you track any single poll that you trust, and so Rasmussen we trust, and they are showing Trump down. So comparing Rasmussen to itself, you don't necessarily know if it reflects the greater population at this 100 days, but you do know that it reflects the movement of how people are feeling, because Rasmussen polls generally the same way every time. So if we want to argue that they're the most accurate, or they tend to be very accurate, and they do, I believe the past several elections, they were all within the margin of error, pretty spot on, then this shows that Trump has gone down a bit. The question for you guys, I think, is do you believe the American population really holds Trump at a double-digit negative view right now? Or do you think that the corporate press is just playing games?
Corporate press. I mean, isn't he still down in Iowa 14 points? Remember that poll that came out just before the election?
Yeah.
I mean, what's more important here, too, is do you think the White House cares? And when you have this constant spin with the tariffs and everything that he's doing, he's taking very, very bold moves. Again, the strongest moves I've seen from a president just in general in my lifetime coming in, other than maybe Biden, who tried to reverse everything from Trump as soon as he came in.
I'm loving this, right? Joe Biden, who tried to decree a constitutional amendment, and they're saying Trump is a dictator.
Yeah. So is this what's going to happen? So every time we get a new administration and it switches to the other party, they're just going to undo everything that everybody did through executive order?
No.
No?
No, because society is collapsing and the end is nigh.
So by the time the next administration comes in, there won't be a government?
No, I'm kidding. Like I do think you're largely correct, but I will stress, obviously, we have this Matt Taibbi article where he's asking about civil war, and it's because people largely missed this story, which is interesting. He's just writing about it now, that a whole bunch of uniparty Democrats wrote a letter vowing to mobilize and stop Trump recently. And I'm just seeing this. I'm like, okay, I didn't realize that. And mobilize is a very specific term. But there's
what do you mean by mobilize?
We know what it means. when the Democrats say go out in the streets, they're not saying to sing songs, hold hands under a rainbow like Kumbaya. Right? They're saying form a gigantic mass so that far left extremists can firebomb buildings.
Were you talking about Democrat politicians or just people who support the Democratic Party?
Establishment shills like people who worked in the deep state and Clinton and things like this. We'll get into that story. What I was going to say is one story that's been bubbling up recently is that this is the year the demographic cliff is supposed to start. And, I didn't know about this because when the financial crisis happened, I guess, how old was I? 22 years old, 21, 22. And for me, I was broke as a joke as it was. So when the market crashed and bottomed out, here's the floor, right? I'm right here. Everybody else is here. They go down. I didn't really notice much. I was like, still poor.
Yeah.
But when this happened, what most people at the time were talking about is that people stopped having kids. And so now it has been 18 years. We are supposed to see a new generation of workers entering the workforce, going to colleges, and they don't exist. So this is going to cause a massive train wreck in our economy in ways that we don't exactly know how that's going to happen. So when I say society is crumbling at the end of the night, I'm just thinking about, these movies that are bombing, these video games that won't sell. And for a while, I'm thinking, I really do think the issue is there's no kids anymore. There is a shortage of young people.
Well, toys right now are the number one consumer of toys are people our age.
Yeah, it's really.
Yo, I got my buddy bought me a Tim Pole. Shout out Andy. He bought me a Tim Pole Pokemon card and Pokemon toy because I'm a Pokemon. Most people don't know this. I literally am a Pokemon. They made a Pokemon after me. How many of you get to say that? Look, you think I'm joking? Take a look. Tim Pole. Did you guys know that? There you go.
I saw this, yeah.
Tell me that the little blue and black frog with headphones on named Tim Pole is not me when that is the colors we use for the company and he's wearing headphones. I digress. You are right. Adults are buying toys. They made the adult Happy Meal. There's no kids. So what I will say is, to your question, Brett, when you ask, every administration is going to change and do this. I was thinking about what happens to a civilization when they undergo a population collapse. Now, I don't know for sure. It's probably stupid for me to speculate in this way, but there were the English peasant revolts after the Black Plague. And this was because with massive labor shortages following the Black Plague, the governments were trying to suppress, like the workers basically had a lot of leverage. So they were like, you need us for day-to-day operations in ways like you can't do. So we can have whatever we want. So the government tries suppressing them to stop them. So they tried using force against the leverage they had, which resulted in revolts. So I'm wondering, I don't think we're looking at as big a population drop-off as like the Black Plague. There was like 30 to 60% of the population of Europe. But I am wondering what's going to happen when we were just hearing the other day in Charlestown, West Virginia, businesses are closing because they can't find workers. There's I mention this all the time. There's restaurants that we've been to where they say that they closed after COVID and they can't reopen because they can't find anybody to do the work. So, simple version, the next administration that comes in, if there will be one, it is going to be radicals. And they're with what this crisis brings, I think we're going to end up with hyper-polarized ideological solutions and factions vying for power that if they get the power, will try to enact very radical things. So with that being said, the Trump administration is doing something absolutely radical. And a lot of people might want to say, no, this is totally normal as America. But hold on. The past 30 years has been uniparty neoliberal rule with the Republicans saying, slow down there, Democrats. They've opened our borders, advised our children, the children of this nation to not have their own kids, to stop having kids because of climate change or to get abortions. Then they opened up the borders to allow tens of millions of people in. And Trump is seeking to reverse it in a way that is very, very different. They now are calling to mobilize against them. So there you go. Rant over.
Yeah. So does that pave the way for like a Bernie AOC ticket for 2028?
AOC maybe.
Yeah.
But
Bernie just
not Bernie.
drag his ass.
Well, Bernie's too old.
It's not just that. It's like, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be a dick to Bernie, but he's past the average life expectancy for a male. Mm-hmm. Considering he's never actually done a job in his life that may either, I'm actually curious. I would assume that if you've never worked, you probably would live longer. You know what I mean?
Less stress.
Like an animal in captivity. Yeah. However, you also might be weaker,
Look at Joe Biden. I mean, he was in how long was he in government office?
Yeah, 50 some odd years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All of his adult life. So
Bernie
20%
Sanders,
of this nation's history.
you know, Bernie's never had a real job, right?
Of course not.
He's only ever worked in government.
I do wonder if, like, I mean, I don't think Bernie's going to run at all, but I think that not only is it his age, but I think that he couldn't win because he's too spineless. He bent over and took it from the Democrats, and I don't know if that's because he didn't really want to be the president bad enough to actually do it, or if that he was just afraid. But you know, he kissed the ring for Hillary Clinton. And I can't get over, like, when he was on stage and those two women came up and essentially took over. He was like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to assert myself and keep the stage without obviously breaking every left-leaning faux pas there is. You know?
I think what might happen is AOC may win a primary narrowly, and then she gets a really low turnout. In 2020, people are saying she might run 2028. I think that'd be silly. I don't think she should, but maybe she will because the Democrats have got nobody else. But we don't know what the Republicans have either. But if it is Vance or it is some popular, you know, Trump has got these Trump 2028 hats, and people are joking, you know, that Trump's going to run again. But he said he won't do it. Could be John Jr. Who knows? Yeah, could be another Trump.
AOC's gotten better. She's finally gotten better at public speaking. She had many a bad interview. Obviously, we make fun of her all the time. But like when you see her in front of these crowds, she's pulled it together. The voice is still kind of but she's actually taken proper advice from people.
I hear you, but guys, the way you sound matters. Deep voices matter. And I know people are going to say it's sexist and the feminists are going to get angry. Don't know, don't care. I'm going to tell you this secret right now.
It's like height matters.
I've told it on the show before. I did nonprofit fundraising for several years, and I imagine it's the exact same thing with sales. There is one characteristic above all else among men and one characteristic above all else among women that typically, that I would say confers they will sell very, very well. And among men, what do you think that trait is?
Deep voice.
No.
No?
Height.
Oh, okay.
You got to be very tall.
Yeah.
Among women, what is the one trait that tends to confer this woman will sell well? Sounds easy, guys.
I mean, I want to say
easy, boys.
big boobs.
Big boobs. And
I wanted to say that. I'm like, I don't know. Should I say it?
that's because feminists are going to get angry about it. But guys, let's be real. If there's a woman with big breasts standing on a street corner and she waves to you, every single guy will stop. 100% of men. And then when she blinks and she smiles and says, I want you to buy this product from me or sign up for this program or donate to charity, the guys go, okay. Now, if you have a tall guy, same thing happens the other way around. Men and women stop for tall guys. So for AOC, being an average height woman trying to be a leader, this is a challenge that women will always have. And I know the left is gonna clip this and they're call it sexist. I am literally saying there is an inherent sexism in all of human beings, and they will look at a woman and think she is too small and weak to be war chief. And that's what a president is. They're the commander in chief of the armed forces. And this will, the only way.
Boob job.
No.
Oh, okay.
Is if the Republican and the Democrats both run a female in the primary and they both win. So I believe was it Gerald Ford? Someone said the first female president will be a VP and the president will either step down or be removed and that VP will become president. And then if she runs again, and let's say the Republicans, the Democrats primary a woman, that's how you get a female president. Mm-hmm. But how that woman wins in a primary, I don't know, which is probably why when the Democrats ran Hillary Clinton, the field was nothing. You guys remember this in 2016?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody ran. There were like, what, 2 guys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and one of them was Bernie Sanders, and he
Oh, I know.
I mean, I know you say that about and I don't disagree with any of your points about height and whether or not, men or America would vote for a woman. I don't know. That being said, if there is a woman that could win, I think AOC would be it. I think because even though her voice is a little grating, when she's actually talking to people and when she's on camera, when you can see her, she's very charismatic and she knows how to use social media. Again, I disagree. I'm not disputing any of your points about whether or not, about what people want. But I think that she is talented, and I think that she's compelling.
I agree with that, but I will also agree with the feminists when they say it is hard for a woman to sound commanding and not bitchy.
Yeah, it totally is.
I agree with the feminists on that one.
But it's possible. I mean, and maybe AOC can't, but you can look at people like Margaret. Margaret Thatcher was a great example because she didn't sound shrill.
How old was she?
She was probably 50 when she did.
This is the other issue I will add is that what do people look up to in terms of authority? And it's going to be older people. So you can have a guy. I feel like, and I could be wrong about all this. Whatever. When I worked in nonprofit stuff, this is exactly what we saw in every single office. Busty women always came back with tons of memberships and tons of money, and the tall guys. And I remember this one really short dude. He was like 5'4", and he was chubby. And he sold like crazy. He signed people up left and right for these nonprofits.
She was 53 when she was elected as a prime minister of the UK in 1979. So go ahead, sorry.
This dude who did really well was a fast talker who seemed very slick but very charismatic. And so here's a guy who developed the ability and the style and was able to succeed through skills, right? But I think long story short, I believe AOC is going to have that hurdle. She's too young. She's too young, and there's going to be a lot of older guys who are going to say, yeah, right, it's not going to happen. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.